Shocked and horrified, everyone began whispering into one another's ears. Su Xiyan actually had a son with him? Who is it? Wasn't she ordered to only feign cordiality towards Tianlangjun? How can this be? Some individuals had found another, more particular point of focus, and were considering the question of reproductive compatibility. Can humans and demons really have children? We all look about the same, so it's probably possible. Su Xiyan may have approached Tianlangjun in the name of her master, said Wu Wang. But how could she successfully win his trust without using herself as bait? This one believes that she was originally capable of maintaining clear boundaries. However, demons are adept in the art of bewitching human hearts, and a perfect defense against such things is impossible. One small slip, one moment of carelessness, and she fell into the demon's trap. A single false step became a lifetime's worth of regrets. By the time we've conceived the campaign, she must already have been pregnant. As for their child, you are all intimately familiar with him. He's the one we just spoke of, the imposter in Huanhua Palace, the cuckoo who roosts in the warbler's nest, Luo Binghe. As soon as Wu Wang said this, the whispers in the hall immediately surged like the tide, building into a towering wave. Shen Qingqiu couldn't help himself and stealthily glanced at Luo Binghe. In the beginning, Luo Binghe had even been in the mood to joke around, content to stand and listen, but the more he heard, the more severe he became. Now his smile faded entirely, and there was a pallor in his face. Yet his eyes were frigid, colder than a blizzard-choked wasteland. Yue Qingyuan's knuckles slowly brushed along Xuan Su's hilt. I was able to meet Senior Su Xiyan once at an Immortal Alliance conference many years ago. Luo Binghe's appearance is 7/10 identical to his mother's. At first, I, too, thought it was only a coincidence, as many people in this world look alike. However, since he is half heavenly demon by blood, it's difficult to take it as mere happenstance, Yue Qingyuan said. The man from Ba Qi sect interrupted again. If it was done against her will, then we can't blame her. But since she must have known the child was a demon, why give birth to him at all? Others immediately followed up. That's right. If Su Xiyan hadn't given birth to him, how could there be a Luo Binghe? Why didn't she abort that evil fetus? How horrifically shameful, really too shameful. No wonder I've never heard mention of the name Su Xiyan before. Naturally, a scandal of this magnitude would be covered up and concealed. If someone from our sect committed the same sin, we'd commit suicide on the spot. How else could we face our master? Upon hearing this, Master Wu Chen looked like he had something to say, but he only lightly shook his head. Originally, this matter concerned a woman's reputation, and moreover, Benefactor Su has already passed away, he said at last. If not for the extraordinary circumstances of the present, these events would never have been revealed, but they simply cannot be hidden any longer. A demon's blood is powerful and potent, and a mother's life is intertwined with that of her fetuses. An abortion at that point would have been highly dangerous. As a deeply proud person, Benefactor Su couldn't accept this, and she was even less willing to tolerate the dubious looks of outsiders. So, the old palace master brewed her a drug that was harmful to demons. After drinking it, she left Huanhua Palace, and from then on, no one knew what became of her. My Lord Buddha is merciful. This one asks everyone to abstain from harsh words and the karma they bring. Luo Binghe's face was devoid of expression, but his fingers unconsciously clenched and relaxed several times. Near where he and Shen Qingqiu were standing, someone said, refusing to acknowledge the lover she had relations with and utterly merciless to her own flesh and blood. What a cold-hearted yet truly incredible woman! Indeed, If only her fortune has been slightly better and she hasn't fallen under that fiend's spell. With such a profound accomplishment and a promising future, she would have to become an extraordinary person of great renown by now. No matter her profound accomplishment, she coupled with a demon and conceived such a monster. Ugh, the mere thought is disgusting. I wouldn't want that kind of accomplishment even if it were offered to me on a platter. I feel that Su Shiyan also felt too ashamed to face anyone. That's why she left her sect and renounced her apprenticeship. Suddenly, the man from Ba Qi's sect said, "This means that from beginning to end, the campaign against Tianlangjun was driven by neither evidence or incident? It was all based on a couple of things the old palace master said about the fellow?" The main hall instantly fell silent, devoid of a single titter. As if completely unaware, the man continued, "I'm only asking. You can just listen or not. However, do you really feel that you were in the right, launching that kind of campaign based only on the old palace master's side of the story? Why do I feel that from start to end, Tianlangjun did only one thing, which was to be tricked by his lover? You even made that young woman approach a dangerous person from a foreign race and ordered her to trick him. Then you forced her to abort her own child via poison, and in the end made her leave her sect heavy with regrets. I don't find this at all commendable. Our Ba Qi sect has never behaved in such a manner, and we would never encourage it." With this remark, a slight and unexpected surprise bloomed within Shen Qingqiu. Given how tone-deaf this good brother had always been, he really wouldn't have guessed that at this time, the man who had actually managed to say something so reasonable in his tone-deafness, it seemed his IQ was a notch or two higher than the average side characters. Very nice, very nice. It was Wu Wang who broke this short period of silence. His white eyebrows furrowed, then he pressed his palms together and rebuked the man. "These words are beyond foolish. Since ancient times, the demons' invasions into and massacres within the human realm have gone on unceasing. Should we have waited for Tianlangjun to legitimately start butchering us to no regret, once it was too late? Besides, as a leader in charge of one of the 4 major sects, how would the old palace master benefit from maliciously deceiving the cultivation world? Moreover, the existence of a seed of evil born of relations with a demon is even less permissible. What's detestable is the sheer power of that fiend's life force, to the point that even taking that drug wasn't enough to destroy the fetus." Wu Wang spoke these words with overflowing righteousness, and applause and exclamations of approval instantly followed. Master Wu Chen wore an expression like he couldn't bear to listen. He brought his palms together and began chanting sutras. It wasn't that no one found the idea cruel, but after hearing Wu Wang's speech, the crowd was deeply affected and invigorated by the mood, and so their thoughts changed. That fetus was Luo Binghe after all. What was there to sympathize with? And so they began to cheer and applaud. Luo Binghe's lashes lowered. It was impossible to tell if he was listening or if his mind was wandering. The past few days, the figure he cut had gradually thawed. Now it froze all over again, a new layer of frost crystallizing on top. At present, people within the Hall of Great Strength were gnashing their teeth over his miraculous survival while cheering for his hypothetical death as a fetus. Yet Luo Binghe acted like he couldn't hear a single thing. If the plotline had unfolded in an ideal manner, the progression here should have been like so. The sect leaders solemnly discuss how to deal with Tianlangjun. Suddenly, demons aiming to cause chaos appear. Luo Binghe single-handedly takes care of the demon lurkers, farming righteous image points in favor. But because a bunch of gossipy hens had talked and talked, Luo Binghe's backstory had been dug up. This had caused the focus of the narrative to deviate from the original. Shen Qingqiu watched the silent Luo Binghe. Suddenly, he was struck with regret. He should never have taken this Zhao Hua Monastery quest. Master Wu Chen sighed. "Must you put it that way? Benefactor Su, Benefactor Su. As she was a lone woman wandering about the outside world, the old palace master sent many to search for her fruitlessly for years. No one knows how much suffering she endured before the end. And though Luo Binghe is half heavenly demon by blood, previously he too never caused any unspeakable harm or evil. Don't confuse yourself with who deserves kindness, martial brother, said Wu Wang. Recall the extent of what they forced you to endure at Jinglan City, and you will understand just how sinister and evil a demon's intention can be. When dealing with demons, you must distinguish them before the sprouts take root. That is the correct strategy. This father and son have conspired against us for a long time already. They've joined hands for their return in a vain attempt to destroy us. Indulging them isn't kindness, but a woman's foolish softness. It will only result in horrors beyond what unfolded in that dream realm. Wow, this Wu Wang's cultivation must have been pretty good, but he really had too much pent-up anger. Other than his lack of hair, there wasn't much Buddha in him at all. Rather than taking up a staff and becoming an abbot, he should have just taken up an axe. By contrast, Wu Chen's martial abilities were only so-so, but he was gentle and kind, so he was even more deserving of the title of, quote, master. Even after this scolding, his expression didn't change, much less his tune. Joined hands to conspire? But such a thing might not be the case. The two abbots from Zhao Hua Monastery squabbled over this without any breakthroughs until Yue Qingyuan interrupted them. Regardless of whether they've joined hands, one point is absolute. I'm afraid Luo Binghe is no good news. He raised his voice. Qingqiu, are you still lurking? The hair on Shen Qingqiu's back stood up, and he dithered for a few seconds. Only then did he slowly walk forward. He felt like a grade schooler who the teacher had called on for reprimand, and the underside of his face prickled faintly. Luckily, he was quite thick-skinned and shameless, maintaining perfect poise as he bowed. Sect leader martial brother, he said. Now that the focus was on him, the person beside him was even more impossible to conceal. Luo Binghe! Someone immediately called out in shock. It's Luo Binghe! Oh my god, it's really him! When did he manage to get in? Shen Qingqiu is here too. He really isn't dead. Back at Huayue City, I saw himself detonate with my own eyes. The majority of the exclamations had the tone of those who'd seen an evil spirit. Yet, mixed in with them were the delicate voices of several women. These belonged to the 3 beautiful nuns from Tianyi Temple, who clutched each other's arms, their faces suffused within a natural flush. The strange part was that some of the flushing seemed to be directed at Shen Qingqiu. Remaining seated, Yue Qingyuan looked at him. A lot of nonsense you've stirred up these days, he said mildly. Are you done? Yue Qingyuan had never assumed such a severe attitude when speaking to him before, even going so far as to use a word like, quote, nonsense. This was already the equivalent of flogging. It seemed that Liu Qingge had badmouthed him quite thoroughly. Shen Qingqiu swore that one day he'd steal Chen Luan's sword and use it to chop up all the pork in all the kitchens of the 12 Peaks. He'd chop until the oily sheen smothered all over its sword glares. Get the plot back on track. Let's get it back on track, okay? Can you guys please direct your attention to the demons hiding within the temple? How are we supposed to farm righteous image points like this? Shen Qingqiu was about to meddle a little and draw everyone's attention to the lurkers' suspicious features. Currently, they were disguised as disciples from miscellaneous sects when Wu Wang viciously slammed his staff against the ground. Luo Binghe, to think you've delivered yourself to our doorstep, he said with a sneer. This simplifies matters. Why not say it outright? When does Tianlangjun intend to commit the deeds he performed within the dream realm? What do the things he wants to do have anything to do with me? Luo Binghe said coldly. Someone else grunted. The two of your father and son, and you ask what this has to do with you? Luo Binghe was indifferent. He's not my father. A mountain of ironclad evidence sits before you, and still you deny it. Do you take everyone here for toddlers? Said Wu Wang. Luo Binghe shook his head. It was unclear what he was stubbornly clinging to, but he repeated, He's not my father. Wu Wang humphed. Truly, good never lasts long, while curses and calamities are undying. If only Su Xian had gotten rid of you back then, things would have been perfect. These words were truly too vicious. Luo Binghe's breathing seemed to stop for a moment, and a blood-red light flashed faintly within his eyes. Shen Qingqiu couldn't afford to give it any more thought. He immediately grabbed his hand. Liu Qingge was standing behind Yue Qingyuan with his arms crossed. When he saw Shen Qingqiu move to hold Luo Binghe's hand in full view of the crowd, a vein popped out on his forehead. Hey! Whenever Liu Qingge was enraged, but also unwilling to say more, his go-to expression was always a fierce, aggressive hey. However, it was completely impotent as a deterrent, so Shen Qingqiu simply ignored it. Luo Binghe having an episode in this kind of situation wouldn't be fun at all. It wasn't only an issue of whether he would be able to farm favor. The main problem lay in this Zhao Hua Monastery subplot being highly difficult to brute force one's way through. If one used spiritual energy, one would be pitting their power against hundreds of others, and if one used demonic qi, one would be facing Zhao Hua Monastery, whose barriers at depths were as numerous as the clouds in the sky. Sealing demons was their specialty. Moreover, attempting a brute force solution meant falling to an IQ on par with Team Sha Hualing and her father. Who is Su Xiyan? Luo Binghe asked coldly. My mother was a mere washerwoman. Wu Wang's report isn't the whole story, and you know very well the kind of person the old palace master was. Shen Qingqiu said quietly. The tone he used was that of someone instructing his disciple, doing his best to remain calm and objective. When it comes to old affairs, those two might well have embellished the tale, and their trustworthiness is suspect, so wipe them clean from your mind. Luo Binghe clutched his arm. Shizun, Tianlangjun isn't my father. His words sounded like both a plea and a declaration. I don't need a father. Shen Qingqiu didn't know what to say. He only squeezed Luo Binghe's hand tighter, hinting that he ought to compose himself first. Originally, Luo Binghe's backstory hadn't been exposed in such detail, so Shen Qingqiu had been unable to judge how deeply this would strike him. He feared it wasn't something a few comforting lines and a couple of head pats could resolve. The faint hopes and dreams Luo Binghe had held in his heart for many years had been mercilessly pulverized into so much dust. Neither father nor son were willing to act the part. Being a pure-blooded demon, Tianlangjun was already indifferent to the concept of parental bonds. After his suffering at the hands of Su Xiyan and other humans, his hatred had extended even to Luo Binghe. He refused to speak a single word of their relationship and had been utterly ruthless back in the Holy Mausoleum. On top of that, Su Xiyan's decisions with regard to her son and his father painted an even clearer picture. Deception, exploitation, disgust, rejection, treating them as her shame, abandonment. To his parents, Luo Binghe was an unwanted child. Wu Wang frowned. To think you have the gall to say such words, as expected of a demon. Luo Binghe turned a deaf ear to him. If he was my father, why didn't he bring it up earlier? Why not tell me? The most Tianlangjun had said was that single line he offered while beating up Luo Binghe, devoid of neither praise nor criticism. He looks like his mother. What of it? But that was all. There was nothing more. Shen Qingqiu couldn't find the words to say. From his point of view, the most likely explanation for this was probably that Tianlangjun really did have some mental issues. But the atmosphere wasn't right, and Shen Qingqiu hadn't the mind to do a thorough roast. He turned and said, I ask everyone to calm themselves a little. Luo Binghe did not come to Zhao Hua Monastery today for the sake of provocation, nor does he harbor evil intentions. Indeed, Master Wu Chen agreed. I ask Martial Brother to first lend Peak Lord Shen an ear. Shen Qingqiu sent him a grateful glance, but Wu Wang sneered. Not harboring evil intentions, you say? Wu Wang raised his voice and yelled. Then what are those? From the crowd emerged 10 or so warrior monks, dressed in red gold robes with a bunch of people already in their grasp. They pressed their captives to the floor, and billows of black chi fanned from the victims. The scene was logically erupted. Demons have managed to breach the temple. Luo Binghe really did come prepared. What a fucking development! Zhou Chongjun, Sha Hualing's father's hodgepodge subordinates, were supposed to be Luo Binghe's tools for farming favor. But now everything had completely backfired. They'd been mistaken for an ambush in league with Luo Binghe. With great insight, Shen Qingqiu pulled out his fan right in time to meet a heavy staff blow from Wu Wang. With a slight raise of his fan arm, Shen Qingqiu blocked the staff mid-strike, keeping it aloft. He was very careful about his level of force, ensuring it was just enough to create a stalemate with Wu Wang. With this, he managed to spare Luo Binghe a backward glance and a rushed line. Leave it with his master.